As entrepreneurs, I got to ask a very serious question. Have you ever been frustrated with your marketing? Have you been frustrated even more when you hired an agency that was going to help you get this endless stream of clients and customers coming to you? If you don't raise your hand, you haven't been trying, because this is one of the biggest challenges in the world for most people. And unfortunately, we tend to go old school, too many of us, too quickly. And I have a guest today that is going to change your whole mindset. More importantly, he's going to share with you the secrets that he's learned as, I'm going to put, the number one direct response marketer in the world. Brian Kurtz. Stay tuned. You do not want to miss this.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Brian, thank you for joining us for the magic of Skype. I really appreciate it. You have been one of my secret weapons. I don't know if you know this, but been a tremendous mentor. I'm one of those guys learning, kind of moving from the old school to the new school, leveraging direct response, and it's been a wow for me. So thank you for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you. And actually, you telling me that I'm a mentor to you is quite an honor. So thank you, John.
Now, we've had a lot of fun together. We met at Joe Polish's mastermind group, and we've got a whole bunch of mutual friends, and it's just been great. And Brian has so much knowledge. I wanted to share with the audience, whether you're on the video podcast or you're on the audio podcast, what Brian's been doing. So a little bit of how you build up all this expertise, but then more importantly, how your fellow entrepreneurs can go out and execute. So Brian, share with us a little bit about how did you get, to this messy office that you're in? I mean, with all that stuff all over the place.
Yeah, it's a little messy, but I know where everything is. I guarantee.
Okay.
But I see myself as what I call a serial direct marketer. And maybe there are people even on this call that don't even know the difference between marketing and direct marketing, or advertising and marketing and direct marketing. But I got here because I think I'm a needy person, I think is how I got here. And I say that in a really positive way. And what I mean by that is that as I started realizing, when I got into business and I got into the marketing field, I realized that I was very needy as far as knowing how I was doing. I didn't want to sit there and throw out an ad, whether it was on TV or in the mail or on radio or wherever it might be, and not get a result that I could measure. And that's what direct marketing is. So, the definition of direct marketing being measurable and accountable advertising, I think ties into my neediness to get feedback on everything I'm doing, and to know that all the effort that I put into the marketing that I do and all the things that I've learned and how I apply them in terms of selling products and services over my whole career, it's really important to have those metrics that tell you exactly how you did, what you spent, and how much you made based on what you spent, and to pay really close attention to all of that. So as a marketer, that was my whole life. When I look at entrepreneurs who have businesses who may be outsourcing some of their marketing efforts, or they're not paying a lot of attention to it, it seems to me that the demand that everybody should be on accountable advertising, I use the word accountable advertising or measurable advertising, is a universal for me. So that's how I kind of got here after 33 years of doing this. Well, but Brian, it's really about selling stuff.
Yeah, let me jump in, because I think this is so important, because I grew up in the financial services side, and it's a huge business. And when I look back, particularly what I've learned over the last 5-6 years from yourself and other peers, it's just been amazing, because so much of marketing was you kind of lick your finger, put it up, and test the win. And the margins were so high in the financial services industry that we could get away with that. And then I would look at, the margins, lifetime value of clients is oftentimes, $100,000, where and you're selling books.
Right.
And
$39 books.
Yeah.
$39 books.
Yeah, and this, for all of us as entrepreneurs, I think this is so important. This is why I want to have Brian on with us, is that, sometimes we get lazy. We're doing $1 million engagements. We're doing, widgets, whatever you're doing. The ability, and this is a point I want to really zero in on, is the ability to get feedback from the marketplace. We all know the value of that, but all of a sudden now with today's technology and the knowledge that the direct response people have put together, I mean, it's amazing, Brian. Help us understand, because there are very few. You guys at Boardroom, you built up a huge business on probably one of the hardest areas in the world, selling books and newsletters, and in a very scientific approach. How did that happen?
I mean, it happened because, we came out of the direct mail business, and I wrote an article recently that said how paying postage made me a better marketer. And the concept behind that is that the thought and the care that had to go into every message that I sent out in order to get an appropriate return on my advertising investment, the creative had to be right. The copy, and we had to have the right copywriters. We had to mail to the right list. We had to make sure that we got the best costs on our printing. And if you have all of those costs, and making sure that you're going to not just cover your costs but make a profit, you better think that through carefully, because the cost is way too high. And what's interesting, and you mentioned before about this whole lifetime value calculation, just because you have a product or a service that's very high priced, it's actually more of a reason to spend more money, as opposed to, well, this is so easy, I only need a couple of sales or a couple of clients, so therefore I don't have to think that much about my marketing. But imagine if you did, and the quality of the clients that you could get. And let me add one other point as I talk about email. I think this internet thing is going to catch on, by the way, so that you've heard it here first. And I've done offline, I've done online marketing. And the thing about email, which I think is a great illustrative point of what you were saying before, just because email is cheap to send out doesn't mean that you shouldn't put the same care and concern into all of your marketing efforts on email as you would in direct mail. And that's why my email correspondence today in marketing is so much better than the average bear, because I think about it the same way that I thought about it when I had to spend a lot more money in direct mail. I say direct mail would cost on the average of $500 to $600 per 1,000 pieces mailed, whereas email costs you about $1 per 1,000, maybe less. So I always say that, $1 per 1,000 marketing deserves $500 per 1,000 thinking. And so that concept of thinking through everything that you do, it's your brand, it's your product, it's your, in a lot of the cases with your clients, I know it's their personal brand. It's like their whole personality is based on what they're selling and what they're doing. Why wouldn't you want those messages, and why wouldn't you want everything that you do to be so pristine and perfect and consistent with the brand, and at the same time make sure that what you're doing is effective, and therefore you can measure it and make sure that everything you do can pay out. And in direct marketing, whether it's online or offline, everything is measurable. Everything you do will get the measurement. So I think there's a lot of things I just threw out there, but I think there's a major concept there, is the care and concern that you want to take with your marketing. And anybody who shuffles off the marketing to someone else because as an entrepreneur you might not be as interested in that, or and I think you opened this with something about, if you've ever been frustrated with an agency, the agency thing.
Yeah, well, and that's why I wanted to have you talk about just for a second, Brian, is that, and I've been guilty of this. We get a great client experience. We're delivering a lot of value. We proved out concept there. We kind of nailed it. Now we're going to scale it type thing. And so you hire an agency. And they're going to do PR, they're going to do print ads, they're going to do TV.
I'm getting
radio,
hives as you're talking, right?
And then they're doing maybe some direct marketing, but they do very little of that, I found out, and I now know why. But tell us the contrast, because as entrepreneurs, one of the things we're really should be good at is delegating this stuff, and why it's so important. We've got to realize our vision. We got to get a team together. How do we make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, you got to ask a lot of questions and you got to be involved. I will tell you this, though. I don't want this to be like a bash of advertising agencies. That's not my purpose.
There are some good ones that you and I both know.
And there are some good ones, and there are some direct response agencies. But let me give you, this will be an illustrative point. I work with the best copywriters in the world. I'm not bragging. I just happen to work with the best copywriters in the world. And you can imagine selling $39 product through direct mail. I better have good copywriters or I'm not going to sell anything. So I need the best copywriters. I would never go to a copywriter who works at an agency. Why is that? Because if they're the best copywriter, I know for a fact that any copywriter who's on straight salary is not the best copywriter. Because the best copywriter is going to get a piece of the action on the quality of what they sell through their copy. So I think that's sort of an illustrative point to show you why one-stop shopping, as I call it, is so dangerous. In marketing, I like to price fixed dinners too, right? I mean, they're simple, they're easier to eat, the chef takes care of it for you. I go the other way in marketing. Marketing is an a la carte business. You want the expert in copy, then you want the expert in media, then you want the expert in production. And yes, you do need to assemble the team as an entrepreneur. I know it's hard because you don't want to get into those granular details sometimes. Although I know some entrepreneurs who actually love the marketing side. You're one of them, and you dig in, right? I'm not saying everybody has to dig in to that degree, but I think that it's really important to understand that it's not as simple as hiring one place to do all of your advertising. And all of those media that you talked about, whether it's direct mail, online, TV, radio, any one of those with the right expert and asking the right questions about measurability and return on investment of the media, everything can be a direct marketing medium. But if you allow your agency or someone to take you down a road that says, I'm going to do image. I mean, I get hives when you say things like PR, image advertising, public relations. As a serial direct marketer, I literally get hives. I mean, I started like itching when you started saying it.
I actually had a negative reaction even saying it too. Because
yeah, and
I've hired all of those here.
They're not bad things. I mean, they have their purpose. McDonald's needs that. But I think that there are things that you can still do direct marketing within that. There's something like I call direct response public relations. So it sounds like a misnomer. But what that would mean would be, let's say you have a company that you have a spokesperson for your company that gets on Good Morning America for an interview. And during the interview, that's public relations, right? That's brand building. Matt, whoever, Today's Show, Matt Lauer's interviewing your CEO on whatever you're doing. At the end of that interview, make sure that there's an opportunity to connect with that audience in a way that you can follow up with them. That's direct marketing. Now you've just taken public relations, an interview in media, and say, you know what? At the end of this interview, Matt's going to tell you about a free downloadable report, I'm making this up, that you can get. All you have to do is send your email address to whatever. And sometimes the shows won't let you do that. But I'm giving you an example of how you then apply direct marketing to a medium that had no response mechanism. And you have to figure out how to get those response. I don't want to get too granular here.
Well, I want to just play on this because all of us are familiar with PR, and you and I have friends who've gotten on Oprah, and they were high-fiving, and it was fantastic. But then they had no call to action. They didn't use any direct response, and it was a disaster. We all have best-selling author friends who have made no money by creating this kind of direct response client path. No matter what your product or solution is, it's huge. Now, Brian, I want to go to our first segment. And this is that life intrudes. None of us get out unscarred. And, you've had such a great career. Where have been some of the hard lessons learned? What was a down period for you and your team?
It's interesting. I think sometimes, for me personally, my biggest success then led to some of my biggest failures. And it's not because I was getting, beer strong, as they call it, in college. I was getting like a little overconfident. But we were in the infomercial business for about 4 years, where we did about $300 million. And we were able to bring together TV and all these different media. And, I confused success with that it'll be easy next time. And I think that as entrepreneurs, your audience needs to understand that you can't just you need to look ahead, but you can't just repeat the success by just imitating it over and over again. Now, this was an extreme example because direct response television, the infomercial business, is a really tough business. People say that 2 out of 20 infomercials actually work. We got 4 out of our first 5 to work, which was actually a curse. Yes, we made $300 million, right? But after those 5, I started thinking I could do infomercials of all kinds and all ways, and I got really, really sloppy. So that's a big scar. I think another. So again, that's one. Just getting a little bit too big for your britches and just not thinking through the same way that you got to the first one. That the 8th one's got to be thought through the same way.
Yeah, no, this is so important. I mean, and we've all fallen prey. I mean, as successful entrepreneurs, everybody who's watching or listening, we've all had some pretty big success. We get a little overconfidence, particularly, 300 million. It's all of a sudden you're going, the market's telling me I got it, the magic touch.
I nailed it, right.
Yeah, and so we need to be careful on these things. But Brian, I want to go to something, the next segment, hang on. What you're passionate about now. And I do know the answer on this, but why don't you share with our audience what you're really working on now and why it's important to them?
Yeah, I'm in a position, I've been doing this for 33 years. I know I look a lot younger than that. Hopefully that the screen has stayed a little fuzzy so that people will think I'm really
young. You got a
young.
Nice soft focus Skype has put on.
Yeah, there's a nice soft focus that says, oh, he can't be that old. So, I'm a serial direct marketer. My work is my play. So everything I do, I think in terms of not just making money, but making a difference. And so my whole life has been about contribution and connection. I hate the word networking, by the way. I think it's one of the most overused words. But I'm so passionate about contributing to people of what I know, just like you are. I mean, I think that's why you and I are kindred spirits. You've learned so much in your life, and you're such a lifelong learner. Therefore, you become the best teacher possible. So I think I'm also incredibly well suited to be one of those very few people, I think, who can be the bridge between the eternal truths of direct response marketing and I was a very little boy in the 1960s, but I've studied the direct marketing of the 1960s and the 1970s, and I got into the business in the 1980s. And so I know the eternal truths of direct marketing. I've read all of the great marketing books. I do have most of the great copywriters on speed dial, not bragging, just saying. And then to be able to then look at the online world today and what's happening in marketing today, and I can be the bridge. I know I can be the bridge. And so I am so passionate about being kind of the ultimate educator of the eternal truths of direct response marketing then and now. Not to sit there and talk about the past and tell you about the good old days when I could mail, 20 million pieces of direct mail and I still tell those stories. But now I tell them in the context of what we did to do that and how it might apply to today's marketing environment, which is a lot different. And, you have email, going back to cheap versus expensive. I'm so passionate about not beating the crap out of your list every day, not beating the crap out of your customers every day, not being annoying in your marketing, but you could be so much more beneficial in your marketing because email is so cheap that we couldn't do in direct mail. So I feel like I've got all of this stuff coming out, in me for the next 33-year career. And I'm so excited about it because I know I have a lot to offer.
Well, and I want to share too, because I mean, the bridge, I call it facilitation, it's curation. I mean, one of the things that was so impressive with Brian, not only is he a humble guy for all that he's accomplished, but I do use the term networking, but I think connections is a better word. It's just not as well understood. Brian has more connections than anyone in direct marketing. And I'm going to put up on the, for those of you who are watching this in video, you can see the program that Brian's working on now. And if you can't, you can just Google Titans of Direct Response. And I'm going to just leaf through this, Brian. I mean, the guys, Dan, Gary, Greg, Jay, I mean, there isn't a name here that I don't recognize as a player. And to be able to bring this kind of group together is, other than the last guy at the end there, yourself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, it is, an amazing event. And what are you looking to accomplish? What is it? It's in September, I think.
Yeah. So just a quick background: the founder of the company that I've been with almost my entire career, Boardroom, was founded by a guy by the name of Marty Edelston. Who anybody here on this call or on this watching this or listening should look up Marty Edelston. Marty Edelston is an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. He kitchen tables, a basement startup, not kitchen table. No one wanted to support him in this little newsletter business that he had. He's a great story. He died last October. My ultimate mentor, my business partner, really great friend. And I wanted to do something. He and I always thought we should be educating the world in direct marketing because we were so good at it. And again, we're not bragging. We got good at it because we worked hard at it. And then it's like, how do we share that with the world?
Well, and you saw the need too. I mean, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, and Marty and I
need.
did a lot of like one-day events, and we've done a lot of stuff over the years together. And after he died, I found myself not thinking about doing an event, but I remember, I came up with some stuff at his funeral, my eulogy for him, kind of talked about like what made this man so extraordinary, because he always said he was this ordinary guy from Newark, New Jersey. And the whole thing kind of steamrolled into the marketing community of, Marty Edelston was a legend in direct marketing. And people said, Brian, there's a lot to be taught here. And I started thinking about if I could bring together what I call the titans of direct response, people who I've worked with personally, with Marty, some not with Marty, but most of them with Marty, people that could share their wisdom. I mean, some of the people that are speaking, like Joe Sugarman, invented blue blocker sunglasses. He invented a catalog back in, I think, the 1970s that preceded the Sharper Image catalog that was a high-tech product catalog. I mean, Joe Sugarman, we're talking about pioneers here. Jay Abraham is a marketing guru. Dan Kennedy is a marketing guru. And they all wanted to come out and speak at this event. And Gary Bencivenga, who's the world's greatest living copywriter, is speaking at the event, as are Boardroom's best copywriters and a host of other people. And so having all these people assembled to do the same thing that I'm passionate about, which is share the wisdom, bring it forward. Don't just tell old boy network stories, but talk about the things that we learned as entrepreneurs and as marketers and how that all applies to businesses today is really the ultimate. That's really what we want to accomplish at this event. I also think that there are, just the stuff we're going to give away, swipe files, as we call them, which are samples of the best marketing programs that have ever been out there. I mean, I even got on radio and TV, I got Greg Renker to speak, who's Guthrie Renker. Guthrie Renker is the largest infomercial company in the world, and Greg Renker wanted to come out and talk about direct response as it pertains to direct response television. Fred Katona is the #1 guy in radio, direct response radio. So this whole idea, it's the education of that whole industry, but it's also this whole idea that everything is multi-channel, that we're not talking about existing only in one channel. And today, because email is cheap, people will gravitate to that first and foremost and maybe not go elsewhere. And I think it's really to do that at your risk. And so to your entrepreneurs, I think what I'm saying to you is that thinking multi-channel, even if you're not going to do the marketing work yourself, force the people that you work with and who you assign this task and be involved enough to know that it's not any one. You never want to put your eggs in one basket. I mean, any entrepreneur knows that. And the same is true when you're picking marketing media for your marketing and different ways to channel that. So that's kind of what Titans of Direct Response is all about. I think it's a one-time legacy event. I may spin off some workshops from it down the road and all that. But right now, it's really this incredible bringing together. And I'm going to honor Marty in a big way because I know he's smiling down at me right now saying, I can't believe you put this thing together. Actually, he's probably pissed off because he said, how could you not put this together while I was alive? But, sometimes it takes the event and I call it the perfect storm of things to bring it all together. And the stars are aligned for, I think, what will be a once-in-a-lifetime event.
Yeah, and definitely if you are, it's September 11th and 12th in Connecticut, and you can go ahead and Google the Titans.
Actually, there's a site. It's Titans of Direct.
Yeah, no, I have it. I actually have it up right now. Brian, and I'm showing our video audience, but on the audio, just go ahead and Google Titans of Direct Response. And if you can, definitely join, because it's going to be an amazing program. But I'm going to keep going because I want to get as much insights real quick. We're going to do 3 quick segments here. First one is on the app of the day. So what are you recommending, Brian, for your fellow entrepreneurs?
Well, I would recommend Open Table, but they're all eating well already,
Yeah.
So we're not going to do that one. You know, I think, and I'm not doing this to play to the audience. And Dan, you know, I'm a disciple of Dan Sullivan's, as you are, and we're good friends. And I'm in, you know, I'm a Dan Sullivan groupie to the max. His app, WinStreak, which I'm sure he might have mentioned, I use every day, and I want to give an angle on it that he might not have. What WinStreak is basically is that at the end of every day, you have to put down your 3 wins of the day, and it doesn't matter what kind of day you had, you're going to have 3 wins. And I think the key about the WinStreak app and making sure that you do this every day is that there's no room in that app to talk about what went wrong. There's no room in that app to say, well, I had these 3 things, but this one kind of screwed up and I did this badly and my wife yelled at me and I didn't push my chair in, whatever. So it's no opportunity for the negative. And I think that's why the app is so good. I'll give you a quick aside to that too. I was at a mastermind meeting, and I had posted in a Google group to this mastermind the day my father-in-law passed away. I was sitting in hospice watching him pass away right in front of me. Mm-hmm. And I remember posting in that Google group what my 3 wins of the day were. And I did it intentionally because obviously that's a crappy day. Very close with my father-in-law. This is his shirt, by the way. I lost a mentor that day, and to be able to put down 3 wins while sitting in hospice watching my father-in-law pass away tells you the power of this. And it's not just the app. So the app does it for you. The app, you set it at 8 o'clock every night. It pops up on my iPhone. What were your 3 wins today? And no matter how bad a day I had 3 wins. There's no way I didn't have 3 wins.
I end every day doing this as well, Brian. And I just think it puts the whole world, I mean, nobody gets through life. We talked about unscarred. Every day we all have challenges. But if we can focus, on the positive and really appreciate how fortunate we are, it's amazing.
It is amazing.
Let's go to the book of the day here.
So, I'm going to go back to a book that was written in 1966. And the beauty of this book is that it was written in 1966, went out of print. When we then reprinted a small quantity of it because it was. I'm going to give you the background in a second, but I wanted to give you the selling point first. So then we reprinted it. We didn't change a word. This was like in the 1980s from 1966, and then it went out of print again because we only printed 250 copies. And then I saw a live bid for the original version of the book on eBay for $950. That it was this lost classic that everybody had to get their hands on. So then we reprinted it in the big way. And the book is called Breakthrough Advertising. It was written by Eugene Schwartz. He was probably one of the best copywriters who's ever lived. And if you think this book is about advertising or direct marketing or creative, you have the wrong book. While it's been billed as that, it's been billed as Breakthrough Advertising and the ultimate book written by the best copywriter, it's about human behavior and human nature. And the fact that the version that we published today, not one word has been changed from the 1966 edition, and there are pictures of ads from the 1960s and 50s in it, and yet the whole thing is 100% relevant, tells you how important this book is to me and to hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people in the marketing world.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, Joe Polish, our mutual friend, shared it with me, and I think he did make me pay the $100. But yeah, it's a phenomenal book, and it puts into perspective. So often we think everything has changed. People haven't changed, and those insights are so valuable. But I'm going to put you on the spot for a second here. Our last segment. What's the one insight, that entrepreneurial insight of the day that you want to share, Brian? Because, I mean, you've got so many, and I'd love that we could just keep on doing this all day. But what's the one?
Oh, God, that's hard to do. But you know what? I think it's that, I'm going to really just gear it right to the entrepreneurs now, that they're to really understand your customers at the deepest level. I don't care. Look, I have a 9 million name database that pay $39 for product. You might have 100 clients who pay $100,000 each. It doesn't matter. They're the same. And when I say they're the same, what I really mean is that understanding at the core what their wants are, what their desires are. Don't treat everybody the same. Don't treat everybody who's a customer, a prospect, a suspect the same way. Everybody deserves to be treated at the level that they are part of your business, part of your life. I said this to Dan Sullivan, as a matter of fact. You know, the people who join Strategic Coach at the highest level should be treated at such a different way than someone who's been kicking the tires for 3 years at Dan Sullivan workshops to try and never spent a dime with him. Very simplistic concept, but it's earth-changing. It's like, you know, the world moves as you move with, and I know I talked about this in my presentation, but the world will move the way you communicate with it. And so not everybody gets to be communicated with the same. And I think when you look at your business and you look at your customers and you look at your, you know, what the people that drive your business, make sure that nothing is one size fits all. And that would be the insight overall, right? We talked about the agency also. So maybe it's like, maybe the insight is nothing is one size fits all, whether it's your customer base, how you communicate with them, whether it's how you buy your marketing, whether it's, you know, how you hire, whatever. One size fits all is such a ridiculous concept, and you must get off of that to really make huge breakthroughs in your business.
Well, totally agree. Let me play back now my key takeaways. I mean, the number one thing I'm going to go is really, this is so subtle and it's, you know, blindingly obvious for entrepreneurs, but it's measuring response. You know, let the marketplace, it's brilliant in giving us feedback. Don't do the put your finger up in the air and test to win. Measure, measure, measure. Split test. I mean, Brian, you've helped me on a lot of this. You know, running we get into great debates in our organization about, well, what do you think? Will this work or that? And we're, you know, everybody's confident their idea is the best. And it's like, oh yeah, let's test it.
Yeah. A/B split testing is like something in direct marketing that's been around forever. Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm not going to tell you when I started doing it, but it's less than forever. And the second point, so number one is measure. Number two is really what you were talking about, your entrepreneur insight for both clients and for, you know, the talent that you're working with. And I got to tell you that I've shared with everyone that I have a virtual company, global headquarters, my pool house. I've got unbelievably talented team. And I used to hire agencies, you know, an agency to do everything. And oftentimes they were good at one thing, but not everything. And then the real talent, they understand being an entrepreneur and they go out and do it. And the ability to bring that together. And this is one of the reasons why we started Accelerating Entrepreneurial Success, is to create that network or connections so that you can really have that relationships. And we'll talk about resources for that. And the last one, I'm going to call it, you know, the anti-overconfidence. This is lifelong learning. I mean, you and I know each other so well because we're in a number of masterminds together. We're out there, you know, we're supposedly some of the most, you know, more successful guys out there. And it's really what's happening is the, you know, situation is one where we are making a difference. Now, what I want to do is put up, Brian, your website, briankurtz.me.
Yes.
And what we've got is a situation, you know, here, describe what's on the website and why we should, if people want to reach out and connect with you.
Yeah, so I mean, basically the main squeeze, that's called squeeze page. So you would opt in and get an interview downloaded to you by going on my list, and you would be double opted in and all that. And that interview, I think that's the lead interview there, is an interview that Joe Polish, our friend, did with Marty Edelston and I about how we built this $100 million business from about a $3 million business in less than a decade. But it's about a lot of other things. It's a lot about entrepreneurship. So I think that actually main thing that people that you would have folks opt into would be very relevant to.
No, I think it'd be great. I mean, and this is where what I want to do is, you know, the very last segment is resources. And let me go back. Definitely sign up for Brian's newsletter or information. And he's got the interview with Joe, and it's just phenomenal.
And there's a lot of other interviews on the right side. They're all free. You can download any of those. And then I also email weekly on different lessons that I've learned over the years.
Okay, and then also remember the Titans of Direct Response. If it fits your marketplace, and it should for almost every entrepreneur, go ahead and take a look at it and sign up for it if you can be there, because there will probably never be another meeting like that. Also, the app Win Streak, you can Google that. We really love that. It's been a great tool. Also, as always, you can go to AESNation.com, Accelerating Entrepreneurial Success. We're a little worried that not everybody could spell entrepreneurial, including me, so we go AES Nation. We're creating a community of connected entrepreneurs who really want to make a difference. Brian, I want to thank you for spending the time today with us and being out there and making a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure, and thank you for including me.
Well, and then it's up to you to take the ideas that Brian shared with us to go out and make a huge difference. The only way that happens is if you execute. Your clients, your customers, and all those future clients, they're counting on you. Don't let them down.